A young mechanic rushes through the busy streets of Austin, chasing his dream job. Suddenly, he spots a woman in a wheelchair stuck on the sidewalk. Without hesitation, he stops to help, unaware that this act of kindness will change both their lives forever. Like, share, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Now let's get started. Jake Miller woke up before sunrise, the soft orange glow peeking through his apartment blinds. Today wasn't just another morning, it was the biggest day of his life. At 27, he had worked countless small mechanic jobs, from dusty roadside garages to cramped home workshops. But now, at last, he had secured an interview with Titan Automotive Innovations, one of the most advanced engineering companies in the USA. If he got this job, everything could change. He could finally afford stability, a real home, and a future he didn't have to fear. He dressed quickly, feeling hope buzz through his veins. He grabbed his old motorcycle helmet, brushed the dust off, and started his bike. The engine sputtered before the familiar rumbling came alive. He knew he should have left earlier, but nerves had slowed him down. As he rode through the streets of Austin, the cold morning wind whipped across his face, sharpening his focus. He rehearsed answers in his head, imagining questions about his skills, his experience, his passion for machines. He wanted to prove he belonged in a world far bigger than his small workshop. Traffic was surprisingly heavy for a weekday morning, slowing him down more than he expected. He checked the time, repeatedly, each minute ticking like a weight on his chest. But he kept controlling his anxiety, reminding himself that he had prepared for years for an opportunity like this. Nothing could go wrong today. At least that's what he believed. As he approached downtown, he took a shortcut through a quieter street, hoping to save precious minutes. That decision would change the direction of his life. As he turned onto the narrow road, something caught his eye ahead. A young woman in a motorized wheelchair struggled near the curb, her chair stuck in a deep crack where the concrete had shifted. She pushed the controls repeatedly, frustration clear in her movements. Jake slowed down instinctively. He had a choice: keep going and make it on time, or stop and help. His mind raced, but his heart knew its answer. He parked the bike, threw off his helmet, and jogged toward her without hesitation. When he reached her, she looked up in surprise. She appeared around 25, with soft brown hair pulled back and intelligent eyes that didn't hide her disappointment at being stuck. Jake gave a gentle smile and asked if he could take a look. She agreed, relieved. Kneeling down, he examined the chair with the skill of someone who understood machines deeply. The right wheel was bent from hitting the concrete angle, and the wiring to the motor had loosened. It wasn't a quick fix, but he didn't care. She needed help. He pulled out his small toolkit he always carried on his bike, a habit he once considered unnecessary, but now felt grateful for. He straightened the wheel, tightened the screws, and carefully adjusted the wiring. The woman watched him closely, noticing how focused he became while working. He tested the chair by rolling it a few inches. It moved smoothly, no longer stuck. Her face brightened instantly. She thanked him sincerely, expressing how long she had been trying to move. Jake simply smiled, embarrassed by the attention, and said it was no trouble at all. As he stood up, he checked the time on his phone, and his heart sank. The interview had already started 10 minutes ago. He exhaled slowly, a mixture of disappointment and acceptance washing over him. But he didn't want the girl to feel guilty. When she asked if he was late for something important, he shrugged softly and said helping someone mattered more than any meeting. She looked at him with surprise, almost studying his character through his words. She asked his name, and he introduced himself before stepping back toward his bike, trying not to reveal how much missing that interview hurt. The woman watched him leave with an expression Jake didn't understand. There was something thoughtful in her gaze, almost as if she saw something in him that he hadn't noticed in himself. Jake put his helmet on slowly, giving her one last reassuring nod before riding away. As he drove, The disappointment pressed against him like a weight, but his conscience felt clean. He had done the right thing, even if it cost him his dream. Yet a small voice whispered that maybe fate wasn't closing a door. It was redirecting him towards something bigger. He arrived home exhausted emotionally, tossing his jacket aside. His mind replayed the entire moment at the curb, her worried expression, his instinct to help, the broken wheel, the calm satisfaction of fixing something for someone in need. He sighed heavily, wondering what the interviewers thought when he didn't show up. Maybe they believed he was irresponsible. Maybe they wouldn't give him another chance. The uncertainty ate at him, but he tried to push it away. Some things were bigger than personal ambition, he reminded himself, and today, kindness had mattered. Still, as the hours passed, the fear of failure crept in. He opened his laptop, searching the company job board again, wondering if any new positions were posted. His stomach twisted at the thought of starting from nothing again. But no matter how many times he re-evaluated his choice, he couldn't regret helping that girl. He lay on his couch, staring at the ceiling, unaware that his life had shifted course in ways he couldn't yet imagine. As he drifted into uneasy rest, he felt a lingering warmth from her grateful smile, one that would change everything soon. Morning approached. Again, dragging his worries forward, Jake rubbed his eyes and sat up, still thinking about the lost opportunity. Before he could gather himself, his phone buzzed with an unknown number. He hesitated before answering, expecting a telemarketer. Instead, a calm voice from Titan Automotive Innovations told him they needed him to come in urgently. His heart nearly stopped. They didn't mention yesterday's missed interview. They only said they wanted to see him, confused and hopeful. He prepared quickly. Little did he know the girl he helped wasn't just anyone. She was someone with power, vision, and a reason to remember him. Jake arrived at the massive glass building of Titan Automotive Innovations with a heart full of confusion. The company looked even more intimidating than he remembered from the pictures online. Tall steel pillars, reflective windows and a polished marble entrance made him feel out of place in his worn boots and simple shirt. The moment he stepped inside, the employees at the reception area exchanged glances, some whispering as if they recognized him. Jake had no idea why. He wondered if they somehow knew he had missed the interview yesterday and were now quietly judging him for it. A receptionist greeted him warmly and asked him to follow her. Instead of leading him to the usual interview rooms on the third floor, she escorted him into a private elevator reserved for executives only. Jake's confusion deepened with every second. The elevator climbed to the top floor, the 29th, where only high-level staff worked. His nerves tightened, thinking maybe they were calling him up to reprimand him or question his reliability. When the doors slid open, he expected to see a group of stern executives waiting, but instead, he saw something far more unexpected. Across the large office, behind a wide glass desk, sat the same wheelchair-bound girl he had helped the day before. She wasn't stuck on a sidewalk today. She was surrounded by large computer screens, luxury decor, and a panoramic view of the entire city. For a moment, Jake's mind refused to connect the two images. She looked calm, confident, and in complete control. The receptionist left them alone, quietly. Jake froze, unable to speak, the truth slowly hitting him. This woman wasn't just an employee. She was someone incredibly important. She smiled at him softly, almost amused by his stunned expression. "Jake Miller," she said warmly, "I'm glad you came." Her voice carried authority, but also kindness. Jake swallowed hard as she introduced herself properly. Emily Carter, 25 years. Old CEO and founder of Titan Automotive Innovations, one of the youngest entrepreneurs in the country, a tech genius known worldwide. Jake felt his breath catch. He had helped her without knowing she was one of the most influential people in the automotive engineering industry. His mind spiraled, unsure how to react. He apologized, instinctively for missing the interview, but Emily raised her hand gently to stop him. She told him she already knew why he missed it. The security cameras near the sidewalk had recorded everything, the moment he rushed to help, how carefully. He worked on her wheelchair, and how he left quietly without expecting anything. She had watched the footage multiple times. She explained that she valued compassion as much as technical skill, and Jake had shown both without hesitation. Hearing this, Jake felt overwhelmed, unsure whether to be relieved or embarrassed. Emily asked him to take a seat, and he sat nervously in the chair across from her. She then explained what had happened after he left yesterday. She had returned to the office thinking non-stop about the stranger who had chosen humanity over ambition. She replayed the scene in her head all night. It wasn't just his kindness that struck her. It was the precision with which he repaired her wheelchair. He handled every piece with care and confidence, the way a true engineer would. She realized instantly that Jake wasn't a random mechanic. He had talent worth investing in. She told him that Titan Automotive wasn't just a company that built luxury vehicles. They were launching a new division, dedicated to advanced mobility technology, focusing on designing innovative wheelchairs, accessible systems, and life-changing assistive machines. Emily believed engineering should help people, and she wanted someone on the team who understood the emotional side of mobility struggles. Jake listened quietly, absorbing every word. His heart thumped louder when she added that many applicants had better resumes, fancier degrees and polished interviews, but none had the heart he showed. Jake tried to control his emotions, but the situation felt surreal. Emily leaned closer and said something he would never forget, that she wasn't calling him here for an interview. She was calling him to offer him a position. Jake blinked, unsure he heard correctly. Emily chuckled softly at his disbelief and clarified. She wasn't offering him a basic mechanic role. She wanted him as a lead engineer in the new mobility division, a position that would shape the future of assistive technology. A job people would kill for, a job he didn't even know existed yesterday. Jake's voice trembled as he asked her why she chose him. Emily looked thoughtful. Before answering, she said she had spent years meeting engineers who were brilliant but lacked empathy. She believed innovation required not only intelligence, but also understanding. When Jake stopped for her, he didn't know she was a CEO. He didn't help because he expected something. He helped because that's who he was. And that, she said, was the kind of person she wanted shaping the company's future. Jake felt a lump in his throat, realizing this woman saw potential in him that he had never seen in himself. He glanced around her office. The polished floors, the clean architecture, the mechanical prototypes displayed on shelves. It felt like stepping into a dream he never dared to imagine. Emily extended a folder across the desk containing the job details. Jake didn't even open it. His voice cracked as he accepted the offer, overwhelmed with gratitude. Emily smiled brighter, telling him that his journey was just beginning. She explained that she wanted him not only for his skill, but also for his vision. She believed he could change lives the same way he changed hers when he fixed her wheelchair. By the time Jake left the office, the world felt different. Employees who had watched him leave whispered again, but this time with admiration instead of confusion. The elevator ride down felt slower, heavier with emotion. He stepped outside into the sunlight, blinking at the brightness. His life had turned around completely in less than 24 hours, not because he pushed for success, but because he paused to be human. As he got on his bike and started the engine, he couldn't help but smile. Destiny had taken him on a detour, but it was leading him exactly where he belonged. Jake returned to Titan Automotive the very next day to begin his first official morning as part of the company. His nerves buzzed with excitement and disbelief. The security guard who had once barely glanced at him now greeted him respectfully. The receptionist smiled warmly as he passed by. Everything felt surreal. He was escorted to the engineering floor, where dozens of high-tech machines hummed around him. Screens displayed blueprints, prototypes, and cutting-edge designs. Jake took a slow breath, realizing he was stepping into a world far larger than anything he had ever imagined. Yet something inside him felt ready. Emily arrived moments later, rolling toward him with the confident ease of someone who had built her own empire. She introduced him to the engineering division, highlighting the new mobility technology project they were launching. The team listened with interest when she introduced Jake as the lead engineer. Some looked surprised, some curious, and some even skeptical. Jake understood why. They had degrees from top universities, while he came from garages and roadside workshops. But Emily rested her faith in him, and that gave him strength. He nodded respectfully, determined to earn the team's trust. Emily showed him the prototype lab, a large room filled with wheelchair frames, motor structures, and robotic components. She explained her vision, a new generation of wheelchairs that combined power, comfort, and artificial intelligence. Wheelchairs that could adjust terrain resistance, detect obstacles, and assist users in daily tasks. Jake listened, intently, overwhelmed by the scale of the project, but energized by the purpose behind it. For years, he had fixed broken machines without ever thinking he could build something that changed lives. Now he had that chance, and he felt a fire ignite inside him. The next few days flew by. Jake worked harder than he had ever worked before. He stayed late, studied mechanical blueprints, tested motor systems, and learned the company's technology step by step. Emily visited the lab daily, checking progress and offering ideas. She wasn't the kind of CEO who gave orders from afar. She collaborated, discussed, questioned, and innovated alongside him. Jake admired her intelligence, noticing how she saw solutions where others saw complications. Their teamwork became natural, as though they had been working together for years. He respected her deeply, not just as a professional, but as a person with remarkable strength. One evening, long after most employees had gone home, Jake was still in the lab, adjusting a new joint mechanism on a robotic wheel. Emily rolled in quietly, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She placed one beside him and teased him gently about overworking. Jake laughed softly, admitting he didn't want to disappoint her. Emily's expression softened. She told him he had already exceeded her expectations. Jake felt warmth rise in his chest. He looked at her, not as the CEO, not as the girl he helped, but as someone whose belief had changed his entire life. They shared a moment of quiet understanding. Over the following weeks, Jake made breakthrough after breakthrough. He redesigned the wheel suspension to reduce vibration. He created a responsive braking system that adapted to the user's weight and speed. And he developed a mechanism that allowed the wheelchair to elevate slightly, giving users better visibility and independence. Emily watched each innovation with admiration. She organized meetings with investors and medical experts, showcasing Jake's work proudly. Soon, the entire company began to recognize him as not just a mechanic, but a visionary engineer. The skepticism that once lingered disappeared, replaced by genuine respect. As the project neared completion, Emily invited Jake to accompany her to a major technology expo in Chicago, where they would unveil the new wheelchair. Jake hesitated at first, unsure if he belonged on such a big stage. But Emily insisted, telling him the invention was as much his as it was hers. When they arrived at the expo, Jake stood in awe at the massive crowd, the towering screens, and the international media. Emily introduced the wheelchair, with confidence and elegance, explaining its features and purpose. Then she invited Jake to join her on stage, surprising him and the audience. Jake stepped forward, his hands trembling slightly. He spoke honestly about his experience, how he came from a simple mechanic background, how he never dreamed of achieving something so meaningful, and how meeting Emily had changed everything. People listened, intently moved by his sincerity. When he finished, the crowd erupted in applause. Emily glanced at him with pride, shining in her eyes. Reporters rushed forward, asking questions about the design, the innovation, and the partnership between the two of them. Jake answered humbly, crediting Emily and the entire team for making the impossible possible. Their invention became an instant sensation across the USA. Hospitals, rehabilitation centers, and disability organizations sent requests for demonstrations. Orders flooded in faster than the company predicted. Investors praised the technology, calling it one of the most humanitarian engineering breakthroughs of the decade. Jake's name spread through the industry, but despite all the recognition, he remained grounded. Emily appreciated that about him. She admired how he never let praise inflate his ego. Instead, he used every bit of success to push the project further, motivated by the desire to improve lives. One quiet evening, after returning from another successful presentation, Jake and Emily sat together in her office. She thanked him for everything he brought into her company, his skill, his heart, his dedication. Jake responded by expressing how she had given him a life he never thought possible. Emily smiled and told him that destiny had brought them together the moment his bike stopped on that sidewalk. Jake felt the truth of her words. Their journey, born from a simple act of kindness, had grown into something extraordinary, and as they looked at the city lights glowing below, both knew this was only the beginning of everything they would build together.